Lexus has never built a bad SUV. That's not a compliment. It's almost the problem. Because when a brand spends 30 years making competent, reliable, inoffensive luxury vehicles, there comes a moment when never bad stops being enough. And the 2027 NX is Lexus answering that charge directly. What they've produced is either the boldest reimagining of a nameplate that's carried the brand's volume sales for a decade, or the most expensive exercise in playing it safe dressed up to look radical. And honestly, after spending serious time with every angle of this thing, I'm not sure which one it is yet. But here's what I do know. The decision Lexus made with this NX's powertrain changes the calculus for every buyer in this segment, and most of the reviews you've read haven't told you the full picture. Before we get into the sheet metal, understand what's at stake here. The NX accounts for nearly a third of Lexus global sales. This isn't a halo car. This is the car that pays the bills, funds the LFA successor research, and keeps dealerships alive in markets where Toyota is considered a step down. When Lexus redesigns the NX, they're not making an artistic statement. They're betting the franchise. Which means every choice you're about to see was argued over, focus grouped, and ultimately signed off by people who understand that getting it wrong doesn't just hurt one model year. It reshapes the brand's trajectory for the rest of the decade. Standing in front of the 2027 NX, the first thing that hits you isn't the new spindle grille interpretation, it's the headlights. Lexus has moved to a blade-thin triple-element LED setup that runs almost the full width of the front fascia, and it gives the car a presence that's genuinely predatory in a way earlier NX generations never managed. The spindle grille itself has been refined rather than enlarged, and I'll be honest, when I first saw the renders, my reaction was relief. The overcorrection of making that grille consume the entire front end was becoming a liability, and someone in Toyota City had the restraint to pull it back. The lower intake is now a wide horizontal opening, flanked by functional aero vents, which does something important. It makes the car look wide without actually changing the track width. Now, personally, I think the fog light delete is a mistake. I understand the aero reasoning, and I understand that most NX buyers have never used fog lights in their lives. But there's a generation of drivers who remember when fog lights meant a car was serious hardware. When you saw those amber lenses on a European sports sedan, and you knew the engineer cared about every condition, not just the commute. Removing them saves maybe $200 in production costs and costs the car something that can't be spec'd back in. In profile, the 2027 NX carries a roofline that drops more aggressively than the outgoing model, a full 22 mm lower at the rear header. Lexus calls this a coupe-inspired silhouette. The honest description is that they're chasing the GLC coupe crowd, which is a legitimate market. The character line running from the front wheel arch to the tail has a new, sharper crease that catches light differently depending on the angle, and in darker colors. The new Nori Green Pearl, specifically. This car stops traffic in a way no previous NX ever did. The rear is where Lexus has made the most unambiguous statement. A full-width light bar connects the taillights in a single illuminated strip that's clearly influenced by what Volvo established years ago, but executed with enough Japanese precision that it reads as original rather than derivative. The diffuser treatment below is more aggressive than anything in the current Lexus lineup short of the RCF. And here's where things get interesting from my perspective. That diffuser is functional only on the F-Sport Performance trim. On base and premium grades, it's cosmetic. That's a choice that matters if you're cross-shopping with a BMW X3 M40e. Open the door and step inside, and there's a specific sensation that stops you before you've even sat down. The leather. Lexus calls the new grade saddle tan, though it reads more as dark amber in real light, carries a weight and a warmth that feels deliberate. It's the kind of material smell that used to mean you'd arrive somewhere. Not the new car smell of a lease vehicle, but the smell of a cabin that was designed by someone who remembered what it felt like to save for something real. The dashboard has been completely re-architected around a 14-inch touchscreen that finally replaces the touchpad interface that Lexus held on to years past its useful life. The operating system is built on the new Arene platform Toyota has been developing, and response times are what you'd expect from 2027. The physical controls for climate have returned as haptic buttons with tactile feedback, which is the right call, even if the haptic response takes a day of adjustment. Rear passenger space has grown by 1.5 inches in legroom, meaningful for a vehicle in this class. The seat cushion angle has been recalibrated for longer journeys, which suggests Lexus is paying attention to who actually owns these vehicles. People who drive distances, people who don't want to arrive somewhere with a numb lower back. Here's what those other reviews buried. The 2027 NX is available exclusively as a hybrid or plug-in hybrid. No naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, no pure ICE option. Lexus made the decision in the 2025 product planning cycle and committed fully. The base NX 350 hours produces 247 combined horsepower, with Lexus's latest 4th-generation hybrid system, smoother, quieter, and with a 0 to 60 that splits the difference between the old 350 and 350 hours. The NX 450 hours plus PHEV extends electric range to 42 miles, which covers the daily driving of roughly 68% of American car owners without touching the fuel tank. If you ask me, this is the right call, even for this audience, because the question was never really about hybrid versus gasoline. The question is whether the character of the drive changes. And with this generation, Lexus has largely closed that gap. The throttle response off the line is immediate in a way that combustion engines, with their moment of hesitation, can't match. That's not ideology, that's physics. There's a version of this story where the 2027 Lexus NX represents the end of something, the last generation where the name still connects to the era when this badge meant a specific set of values. Reliability over excitement, refinement over drama, the quiet confidence of a car that doesn't need to prove anything. But I think that reading gets it wrong, because what Lexus has actually done here is bet that their core buyer, the person who has owned 3 or 4 of these, who recommended them to their kids, who knows the service history of every vehicle they've touched, is ready for the next chapter, not because they've abandoned what they believe, but because what they believe has always been about quality, longevity, and the feeling that your money went somewhere real. The 2027 NX, if it delivers on its engineering promises, is that same covenant in new clothes. Drop your rate on this in the comments. I want to know if you think Lexus earned this move or overcorrected. There is a question that serious car buyers ask themselves, and it is not the kind of question you see answered in a flashy television commercial. The question is simple, almost brutally honest. Will this vehicle still make sense in my life 10 years from now? Not just run, not just start in the morning and get you from point A to point B, but actually make sense, hold its relevance, justify every dollar you spent on it. That is the question that the 2027 Lexus NX is trying to answer before you even ask it. And I want to be honest with you right from the start. I have spent a long time watching the automotive industry promise longevity and then deliver something that starts feeling outdated within 3 years, software that stops receiving updates, powertrains that were already behind the curve when the ink on the window sticker was still drying, technology that was genuinely impressive at launch and embarrassing by the time your second service appointment rolled around. So when Lexus says that the 2027 NX is built to outlast the decade, my instinct is not to applaud. My instinct is to dig in, to push back a little, and to find out whether that claim has any real substance behind it. What I found, after going deep on the engineering documentation, the platform decisions, the powertrain philosophy, and the technology roadmap that Lexus has laid out, is something that genuinely surprised me. This is not a vehicle that was designed to impress you on the lot and disappoint you in year 4. The decisions embedded in the 2027 NX suggest that someone inside Lexus was thinking very seriously about a customer who keeps their cars for 8, 10, even 12 years. Someone who does not trade in every 36 months. Someone who wants the relationship with their vehicle to be a long and stable one. And honestly, for the demographic that has always loved Lexus, that is exactly the right instinct. Let me take you through what makes this vehicle tick, and more importantly, why I think it represents something more meaningful than just another mid-cycle refresh or a badge-engineered corporate compliance exercise. Performance and drive. Start with the powertrain, because that is where the promise of longevity either gets made or broken. The 2027 NX arrives with a restructured hybrid architecture that Lexus is calling its 5th-generation system, And this is not marketing language dressed up to sound like engineering. The actual mechanical and electrical underpinnings have been substantially revised. The electric motors have been repositioned for better weight distribution. The battery chemistry has been updated to retain more capacity over a longer number of charge cycles. And the thermal management system, which is the invisible hero of every long-lived electrified drivetrain, has been completely overhauled. Why does thermal management matter so much? Because heat is what kills hybrid batteries. It is what kills them in Phoenix in August, and it is what kills them in Minnesota in January. The original Lexus NX Hybrid, which was already a good vehicle, had a battery that could lose meaningful capacity after 100,000 miles in certain climates. Lexus engineers have been working on this problem for years, and in the 2027 model, the solution involves a more sophisticated liquid cooling and heating loop that keeps the battery pack within a narrower temperature window regardless of ambient conditions. My personal read on this is that it is one of the most important improvements in the entire vehicle, even though it is nearly invisible to the buyer sitting in the showroom. The plug-in hybrid variant, which Lexus expects to be the volume seller in the NS lineup, now offers a substantially improved electric range. We are looking at real-world numbers, not the inflated EPA estimates that tend to dissolve in highway driving in cold weather, of somewhere between 40 and 45 miles on pure electric power under normal conditions. For the average American driver, who travels roughly 30 miles per day, that means the vast majority of daily driving can happen without touching gasoline at all. The engine becomes a range extender, a long-distance companion, rather than the primary energy source. This is the correct philosophy for a vehicle that wants to remain relevant as fuel prices continue their long-term upward trajectory and as more and more charging infrastructure appears in the places where NX owners actually live and work. The combustion engine itself is a refined 2.5-liter four-cylinder that has been in continuous development for years and represents some of the most thermally efficient gasoline engine technology available in the mass market. Thermal efficiency is a somewhat abstract concept, but it matters enormously over a decade of ownership. A more thermally efficient engine converts more of the energy in gasoline into motion and less of it into waste heat. That means lower fuel bills at every fill-up, and it means less stress on every component that has to manage that wasted energy. The 2027 version of this engine has been pushed to levels of efficiency that were previously only achievable in laboratory prototypes. Combined system output in the plug-in hybrid configuration is rated at 306 horsepower. That number is meaningful not just because it feels spirited on the road, which it does, but because the power delivery is instant and linear in a way that combustion-only vehicles cannot replicate. The electric motor torque arrives the moment you ask for it. There is no waiting for the engine to spool up through its power band. This gives the NX a quality of responsiveness that drivers tend to describe as confidence, as feeling connected to the machine in a way that surprises them given that this is a family SUV and not a sports car. The suspension tuning for 2027 has been revised with what Lexus calls a bias toward active stability over passive compliance. What that actually means in plain language is that the engineers have moved away from trying to absorb every road imperfection with spring and damper travel and toward a more dynamic system that reads the road and adjusts the vehicle's behavior in real time. The result is a ride that feels more contemporary than the outgoing model, less floaty, more planted, while still maintaining the smooth and quiet character that Lexus customers have always expected. I want to offer a personal observation here. There is a long-running debate in automotive journalism about whether Lexus has sacrificed too much driver engagement in pursuit of comfort and refinement. I have always thought that criticism was slightly misaimed. The people who buy and keep Lexus vehicles for a decade are not looking for a vehicle that keeps them on the edge of their seat on every freeway on-ramp. They are looking for a vehicle that makes them feel secure, composed, and relaxed over hundreds of thousands of miles and dozens of different driving conditions. The 2027 NX suspension revision strikes me as a smart evolution that adds a layer of dynamic responsiveness without abandoning the fundamental comfort that built the brand's reputation. The all-wheel drive system available on the plug-in hybrid deserves specific attention. The rear electric motor that provides A2BB capability in this configuration is not mechanically connected to the front axle. There is no center differential, no driveshaft running the length of the vehicle. Instead, the rear motor can apply torque to the rear wheels independently and almost instantaneously, with a response time measured in milliseconds. In practical terms, this means that the system can redistribute power between front and rear, not just when it detects slip, which is the reactive approach that older ADB systems use, but proactively, anticipating what the vehicle will need based on steering input, throttle position, and road surface data. The engineering implications here are significant. Fewer mechanical components between the driver's intentions and the wheels, less parasitic friction during normal driving, more precision in adverse conditions. For buyers in the northern United States, in the mountain states, anywhere that sees real winter driving, this ADB architecture is genuinely meaningful. I have watched traditional ADB systems feel increasingly outdated as electric motor technology has made the kind of torque vectoring that used to require exotic mechanical hardware relatively simple and affordable. The 2027 NX's approach reflects where the industry's best thinking has landed on this problem. Noise, vibration, and harshness, which the industry bundles under the shorthand NVH, has always been a Lexus obsession. In the 2027 NX, the engineers have added acoustic glass on all 4 side windows, not just the front doors, and have increased the density and coverage of the sound-deadening material throughout the cabin structure. The result is a vehicle that is genuinely quieter at highway speeds than its predecessor, which was already among the quietest in its segment. My instinct is that acoustic comfort is underrated as a long-term ownership quality. Noise fatigue is real. Spending an hour in a loud vehicle is measurably more tiring than spending an hour in a quiet one. Over 10 years and tens of thousands of miles, that difference compounds. The technology integration in the 2027 NX is where I want to spend some additional time, because this is where many vehicles that claim longevity actually fall short. The infotainment system is built on an architecture that Lexus has committed to supporting with over-the-air updates for a minimum of 10 years from the production date. That is a meaningful commitment. It means the navigation system will keep receiving map updates. It means the interface will continue to evolve. It means the vehicle's connected services will not simply stop working when a server gets retired. For anyone who has experienced the frustration of buying a vehicle with an expensive built-in navigation system, only to watch it become obsolete within 5 years, this commitment should resonate. The Driver Assistance Suite in 2027 is comprehensive in a way that reflects genuine maturity in the development of these systems. Lexus Safety System Plus, which is the brand's umbrella for active safety technologies, has been updated to include improved highway lane centering, enhanced automatic emergency braking that can detect cyclists and pedestrians in a wider range of lighting conditions, and a new generation of adaptive cruise control that handles stop-and-go traffic with noticeably less intervention from the driver. These are not features that sound revolutionary in a press release, but feel transformative in daily use over years. The cumulative reduction in driver fatigue and the cumulative improvement in safety outcomes that come from having these systems working reliably over a decade of ownership are substantial. Verdict and price. Let me come to the question of value, because this is ultimately what the decade longevity argument lives or dies on. The 2027 Lexus NX is expected to carry a starting price in the range of $49,000 for the base configuration, climbing toward the mid-60s for a fully equipped plug-in hybrid. Those numbers are not small. They require a serious conversation about what you are actually paying for. Here is how I think about it. A $49,000 Lexus NX, maintained properly and driven with reasonable care, is a vehicle that could plausibly give you 200,000 miles and 15 years of service. Spread that purchase price over the ownership period, and you are paying roughly $3,200 per year for the vehicle itself, before fuel, maintenance, and insurance. Compare that to a $35,000 vehicle that you replace every 7 years. The economics are closer than people assume, and they tip further toward the Lexus when you factor in the substantially lower depreciation rate that Lexus vehicles have historically maintained relative to competitors. Lexus residual values are not an accident. They are the product of a reputation for reliability that has been built over decades of consistent execution. The 2027 NX is unlikely to damage that reputation. The engineering decisions embedded in this vehicle, the revised battery thermal management, the updated hybrid architecture, the acoustic improvements, the over-the-air update commitment, all of them point in the same direction. They point toward a vehicle that is being built for the long relationship rather than the short impression. I want to offer one honest caution, because I think intellectual honesty is more useful than cheerleading. The electrified drivetrain in the 2027 NX, particularly in the plug-in hybrid configuration, introduces components that did not exist in the simpler combustion-only vehicles of previous generations. The battery pack, in particular, is not indefinitely durable. Lexus's warranty covers the high-voltage battery for 10 years or 150,000 miles, which is among the most generous in the industry. But beyond that warranty period, battery replacement is a real cost that buyers should factor into their long-term ownership calculus. My assessment is that for most buyers, the fuel savings over a decade will more than offset any battery maintenance costs. But it is a variable that deserves honest acknowledgement rather than dismissal. The competitive landscape for the 2027 NX is more crowded than it was even 3 years ago. The BMW X3, the Mercedes-Benz GLC, the Genesis GB70, and several other well-engineered luxury compact SUVs are all credible alternatives. None of them, in my assessment, makes the specific argument that the 2027 NX is making. The German competitors tend to optimize for driving engagement and technological display. The NX is optimizing for something different. It is optimizing for the kind of ownership experience that makes sense when you are talking to someone who measures their relationship with a vehicle in decades rather than lease cycles. For the buyer who knows themselves, who understands that they keep their vehicles for a long time, who values the accumulation of a reliable, quiet, capable, and increasingly economical driving experience over the possession of the newest and most impressive technology in any given year, the 2027 Lexus NX makes a compelling case. It does not ask you to compromise on capability in order to embrace efficiency. It does not ask you to accept a noisy or rough-riding vehicle in exchange for longevity. It does not ask you to gamble on unproven technology. What it asks instead is that you think long. Think about where you want to be in 2032 or 2035. Think about the roads you will drive and the conditions you will face and the miles you will accumulate. Think about what you actually want from the relationship between a driver and a machine over many years, and then ask yourself whether a vehicle engineered with that time horizon in mind is worth the premium over something built to impress you today and age quietly into irrelevance by year 5. My answer, after going through everything that the 2027 NX brings to the table, is that for a specific kind of buyer, it absolutely is. Not for everyone. The buyer who genuinely enjoys changing vehicles frequently, who finds pleasure in always driving the newest iteration of something, who values the first-year ownership experience above the 8th-year ownership experience, that buyer should look elsewhere. But for the buyer who wants to make one serious, considered decision, and then live with it well for as long as the relationship makes sense, the 2027 Lexus NX is one of the most honest and intelligent choices in the market. That is ultimately what built for the decade means in practice. Not a marketing slogan, not a warranty brochure claim, but a series of engineering decisions, each individually defensible and collectively coherent, that add up to a vehicle designed to age gracefully, to stay relevant, to justify its price over the full arc of its useful life. In a market that increasingly rewards novelty and punishes patience, there is something almost countercultural about a vehicle that makes exactly that argument, and I find it genuinely refreshing.